Welcome.
Hello computer cooks and welcome back to Retro Recipes. Now over there, lurking in the corner and displaying my Retro Recipes Space Invader logo, is the Amstrad PCW 8256. My father owned it in his office, and being a home office, I got to play with that computer every night. And there's something pretty special about that monochrome green screen display and the way the graphics looked when you're playing games like The Pawn, the adventure game, of course. However, one of the most fun things was playing with a light pen on it. I never really understood how that thing worked. It seemed like a magical, supernatural invention to me. So I was able to obtain another light pen, which is exactly the one that I had as a kid. Problem is, the one that I found after months and months of searching, and they're really rare, doesn't quite work right. So I'm going to attempt to repair a light pen, and in doing so, reveal a few of the secrets of how they actually work. Hopefully it will enlighten you, pardon the pun. In fact, pardon all the puns. Thousands of them. Welcome to Retro Recipes. And here's the device itself, the Electric Studio Light Pen. And here's where it plugs in. This is the Amstrad PCW, produced between 1985 and 1998. Well, now you might know about this machine, but she doesn't. Hey puppy, this is the PCW 8256.
Unlike typewriters, the Amstrad 8256 word processor and computer comes with a monitor, disk drive, and printer included. From around $1,099, it's leaving the future of typewriters up in the air.
It had 256 kilobytes of RAM, and look, I've upgraded this one with a second high-density disk drive so I could read my childhood disk that I'd saved on the PCW 8512. Oh, you don't like these? I know, they're a bit weird. They're 3-inch discs, not 3.5-inch. Alright, I'll get it away from you. Put it in there. No, food doesn't come out of those slots. Here, look, I'll show you where the light pen goes. See, it just plugs into this edge connector at the back. A lot of peripherals, printers, serial ports, parallel ports were actually produced for that edge connector, and it communicates directly with the Zilog Z80 processor, which runs at a whopping 4 MHz. As for this, we just load up CP/M+, which comes with the machine, put the Electric Studio Light Pen disk in drive B, and we just load it up by typing in the program name ART. But so let's take a look at what's wrong with this light pen. So that's the cursor, and as I point the pen at it, you can see the cursor jump to the right. Let's look at that again. And of course the cursor is meant to stay underneath the tip of the light pen. And it actually moves exponentially depending on how far horizontally the pen is. So there's obviously some kind of calculation error going on here. So starting with the basics, this is obviously where it plugs into the computer, so I'm going to start with a contact cleaner and make sure everything's making a good connection there. Love that fizz. Alright, we'll leave that to dry and open up the device. Let's see what it's made of. Wow, that is so cool. First thing that strikes me is how big the circuit board is, really unnecessarily so. These tracers take up a lot more space and a lot wider than they really need to be. Let's take a closer look. What I'm doing here is analyzing all the traces and also looking for maybe any leaking capacitors or resistors, just general board damage. And actually, It looks to be in amazing shape. I think it's actually been working out. Wait a minute. What is that? Let's take a closer look at this. That looks like the output from a solder sucker. Could it be that simple? Let's get this out. That obviously shouldn't be in there. It may have actually been shorting out those two pins. It could even have actually caused some damage to one of the chips. Back to Bart. The moment of truth. Cursor's in the center. As before, as you saw, when I press the pen to the screen, it would jump to the right. Ah, damn it. It was not that solder shaving at all. Oh, worth a try. Next up, I want to try some chip swapping. But for that, I need some more chips. So I scoured eBay, and fast forwarding a few months, all the way from England, came a new Electric Studio light pen. This time supposedly working, and noticeably smaller. Here, it's the Electric Studio Amstrad PCW light pen. Oh, you're washing the photoreceptor. Thank you. So this is obviously a more modern iteration, but I'm hoping upon hope that it has the same chips inside, and that they're not fried chips. In goes our edge connector adapter, the other way around, like a vintage USB. And this is a heavy device, as the entire computer is inside that screen assembly, but it's worth its weight in old. In goes the new light pen. Well, not new, but... And this time, just to keep things interesting, we'll put it in drive A. So this time we're loading art. Just glad there isn't a drive F. Now this bit always worked because it only read the horizontal position. But yes, working as designed. Which is more than can be said for my art skills here. But you can get an idea of how this is meant to work. You choose an option on the screen, hit the spacebar to select it. There's a little lag of the cursor after the pen, and you'll see actually why that lag takes place when I delve deeper into the mysteries of light pens. Before that, a beautiful iteration of the RetroRecipes logo. Now, if we travel back in time a couple of years, my friend the 8-bit guy, he did a great video on how light guns and indeed light pens work. Now, similar principles in fact, but I thought it'd be fun to delve deeper and show this process in super slow motion. And to do that, I'm going to be showing you images from a slow motion camera that shoots at tens of thousands of frames per second. That said, I don't want to spoil the magic too much, so look away now if you don't want the illusion shattered. Well, let's push into the screen a bit and slow things down to see how this thing actually works. So I've switched to a color display here and slowed down the image using a camera that shoots at about 20,000 frames per second. Now let's slow it down to 40,000 frames per second, and you can really see each scan line being drawn by the cathode ray onto the tube. Slowing it down even further here. Now you can begin to see how the line is being drawn from left to right, although even at about 60,000 frames per second, it's still almost impossible to see. And here we're at about 80,000 frames per second, and you can now just about make out the drawing from left to right. And it's actually drawing onto a phosphorescent surface, which aids with something called persistence of vision. As we see the last line drawn, it sort of hangs around on the screen, which helps maintain a solid image whilst the other lines are being drawn. Now it's important to know that inside the tip of the light pen here is a photosensor. Looks like a little LED or a light bulb. And currently that photosensor is sensing black. Until here. So this is when the light from the scan line that's currently being drawn hits that photosensor. Let's throw a grid over this to make a bit more sense of things. So the scan line is moving down the screen. Let's freeze time. So this is all happening in a millionth of a second. And that little pixel just lit up, and the light pen photosensor noticed. There it is. So to help explain this, let's throw some column numbers across, and just for the sake of argument, and so that you can actually see them, we'll number them 1 through 60. And you can see that that pixel occupies the column 34. And let's throw some row numbers down the left-hand side as well. And you can clearly see that that scan line and that pixel occupy row 17. So you and I, we're going to affectionately call this pixel that just lit up 3417. Now we know it lit up, and the light pen knows something happened when it saw light enter the photoreceptor, but it doesn't know it was 3417. The moment that pixel lights up, the light pen literally says to the computer, "Hey, I've seen the light." And it sends that signal through the light pen, through the cable, into the PCB, and into the computer. Now the computer knows that at that exact millisecond, or billisecond, it was drawing pixel 3417. And that way the computer on the next redraw is able to display a cursor at that point, which is why there's a little bit of a delay, especially with that Z80 processor. So you can see that rather than the light pen shooting something into the screen, which is how I used to think it worked, the screen is shooting something into the pen. So now we have a bit of an insight into how light pens work. Let's take a look at the chips on the board that could be causing the issue. So top left here we've got the gate, and here is an inverter trigger. This one is another gate, make sure you close it behind you. That's a bus buffer. Down there is another gate, and up the top here we've got a counter. Now did I mention the new old replacement was smaller? Look how much smaller. Let's put that to one side for a moment and delve inside this one. And please everyone keep your fingers crossed that the chips are the same inside. I waited months for this. Very different. Or is it? Actually, this potentially looks promising. Definitely smaller. Here's a banana for scale. Let's put them side by side. And now I can actually see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The model numbers on the chips are different, but they're arranged in a similar sort of fashion. Oh, where did you come from? Yeah, careful. Yeah, that's the inside. Don't tread on... Oh, you're trying to fix it. Good girl. Let's see if it worked. Oh, no. Yeah, I'm still training her. But other than puppy repair, another direction I could have gone, as I've seen how simple the PCB layout is to have put that PCB layout into a CAD file, sent it off to PCBWay, and they could have actually built not just the board, but all the components on it as well. And whilst PCW stands for Personal Computer Word Processor, PCB, of course, stands for Personal Computer Bird Processor, or something. Catch me on Twitter. Well, let's compare these chips. So the gate has a similar model number. So does the inverter trigger. In fact, all of them have a similar model number, so I think this is the same board, same chips, just newer versions. So I'm just going to start chip swapping. For that, we turn to my trusty desoldering gun. Needs a bit of a clean. This also gives us a chance to explore some desoldering techniques really quickly. You'll notice I didn't add any flux or new solder to those joints before I started desoldering them, and they're not coming free very easily. Now what that demonstrates is that it's important to add new solder before you desolder, or flux paste, and that will actually help get the old solder flowing and allow you to suck it up a lot easier with the solder sucker. So I'm going to add some new solder to some of the more stubborn pins here. In fact, what the heck, I'll just do all of them. And you can really hear now with the screwdriver that I'm using to flick the pins free with, they're all coming free really easily. Let's get this baby out of here and hope it's the faulty one. Now this is a gate, so it will basically open and close to signal something starting and stopping. I'm going to tidy up the pads on the back here really nicely. Use some IPA rubbing alcohol too. Very gently, you don't want to dislodge these old pads on this PCB. Look at that, good as new. So let's get a chip socket. And I always like to solder the opposing corner pins first, just to hold it in place. That way you don't have to worry about using tape or putty. And then we'll just drop our solder into each pin, one at a time. And let's check the corresponding part numbers, 74HC02, 74HC02. Slightly different revisions, but it should work out. So first I'm going to add solder this time to the joints that we're going to desolder. See how much easier they all come free. And out it comes. Beautiful. So I'm going to do a little cleanup to the legs. Now some people remove all the solder. I just kind of straighten it out. When you take the chip out, it's kind of spiky and it can stick in the socket. So just by smoothing out the solder, just make sure you get a nice smooth insertion, and you can take it out again easier if you want as well. So let's drop it in. And test it out. Fingers crossed, everyone, that it was the gate. Ah! Couldn't have been that easy, could it, the first chip? So I put my thinking cap on, and let's try the counter. I did oversimplify the explanation earlier, and there is actually some calculation going on between when the light pen hits the center of the screen and when the cathode ray finishes drawing to the right hand side of the screen, and I suspect this counter chip is responsible for that. We've desoldered the new one, desoldered the old one. We're going to put the new one back into the old position. Okay, we now have a new gate and a new counter. Let's try it out. Oh! We could be here all day, folks. Let's try the trigger inverter next. Now, if my suspicions are correct, the trigger inverter is what's responsible for telling the computer, literally the moment that the light pen sees that light in the photo sensor, it pulls the trigger. New one's in, and we'll load up our software again. Type in BART, B-ART. Fingers crossed. Yes! The cursor is directly under the light pen. Thank goodness. Well, I think what happened is that trigger was triggering late. Possibly shorted out by that solder sucker fragment. But there is a bit more to how these things work than I originally told you. When that light pen sees the light, although the computer knows what row it's drawing, it doesn't know what column it's drawing. So it has to count how long it takes from the time the light pen sees the light to when it finishes drawing that same row. If the trigger is triggering late, that counter calculation is going to come in wrong. So it's displaying the cursor further to the right than it should be. Well, now it's working. Let's put it to the test. You can see here, retrocomputing and music are not my only skills. I am also a talented light pen artist. Yeah, this is truly one of the greats. In fact, I've just got to sign it, which I can now do with a working light pen. Yay! Copyright. PERI, an artist unappreciated in his own time, apart from on Instagram. So what we need to do now is buy a new chip for the newer device. So we have two working devices. And look at this, I found one for 25 pence. That will save me enough money for art lessons. Hey Bob. Yes, you need light pen lessons too. But first you need typing lessons. Try it out. Classic puppy head tilt. Look, this goes in here. See the light? Look. Look, the lines. Can you type something? Oh, you are. Oh. Guys, she's typing kisses. Come on, puppy. Let's tell everybody to like and subscribe and comment below and say cheerio. Say bye-bye, computer cooks. Bye-bye. Now stop filming me.